Lena, Static Hill, 34.56 degrees north, 82.31 degrees west. Psst.
Did you hear that?
Hear what?
My radio just spoke, and it said Static Hill.
Static Hill? The creepy abandoned radio tower everyone says is haunted? This is going to be awesome.
Haunted? No way. This is Echo Pines, not some horror movie.
Come on, Ash. Don't you want to solve a good mystery?
And the coordinates the voice gave? They're real. It's like a message, an invitation.
Fine. But if we see even one flickering light, I'm out of there.
The old dirt road leading to Static Hill was shrouded in an unnatural fog. The car clock flickered, then jumped back 10 minutes.
Did you see that? The clock?
Lena ignored him, focusing on the strange energy she felt crackling in the air. It made the hair on her arms stand on end. Then her radio crackled.
Lena.
Her name. It had said her name.
Look, birds!
He pointed to a flock of blackbirds frozen in mid-flight. Or were they? It was hard to tell in the swirling fog. The car sputtered and died a few yards from the foot of the tower. Silence descended, thick and heavy.
Great, now we're stuck.
It wasn't just the car, though. His phone was dead. No bars. Lena's gadgets were equally useless.
This place, it's like a tech black hole.
Guys, look.
His camera, the only device still working, displayed a chilling scene. Flickering images showed shadowy figures surrounding them, their eyes glowing in the viewfinder. But when they turned to look, there was nothing there. The tower loomed above them, a rusting metal giant against the swirling grey sky. A strange pull drew them towards it. Inside, dusty cobwebs clung to every surface. Old reel-to-reel tape recorders sat on a table, wires snaking out like veins.
What is this place?
Ash whispered, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. He tripped over something, a metal box, sending a cascade of cassette tapes scattering across the floor. Lena picked one up, blowing off the dust.
These tapes, they're labeled with our names and dates from when we were kids.
A chill ran down Lena's spine as she slotted a tape into the recorder. A younger Ash's voice filled the room.
Today I found a cool bug in the park. I think it's a ladybug, but it's blue. I hope it comes back tomorrow.
Cam snatched the tape, replacing it with another. This time, it was Lena's voice, high and excited.
Mom got me a new telescope. We're going to look at the stars tonight. Maybe I'll see aliens.
Each tape was a snapshot of their past, filled with childhood dreams, fears, and secrets. But how did these tapes get here? Who recorded them, and why? The room suddenly felt cold, the air heavy with an unseen presence. Lena's gaze fell on the radio equipment, its dials glowing faintly. The room was dimly lit, casting eerie shadows that danced on the walls. The air was thick with an unsettling silence, broken only by the faint hum of the machinery. Lena felt a chill run down her spine as she approached the equipment, her eyes narrowing in suspicion. It was then she noticed the pattern. The dials moved in a rhythmic sequence, almost as if they were communicating in a language only the machines understood. Her heart raced as she tried to decipher the meaning behind the movements. Each flicker of the dial seemed to tell a story that was both fascinating and terrifying. The dates on the tapes, they matched the dates on the equipment logs. Lena's mind raced as she connected the dots. These weren't just random recordings, they were meticulously documented events. Each date corresponded to a significant moment, a moment that had been captured and stored by the equipment. Dates when the tower was receiving strange, powerful signals. Signals that seemed to come from another world, another dimension. Lena's breath quickened as she realized the implications. These signals were not just random noise, they were messages that had been intercepted and recorded by the tower.
It's recording us, Lena whispered, her voice trembling with fear. The realization hit her like a ton of bricks. They were not alone. The equipment had been monitoring their every move, their every word. It was as if the tower had a life of its own, a life that revolved around them. The tower, it's not just broadcasting, it's receiving. Lena's voice was barely audible. but the weight of her words hung heavy in the air. The tower was a two-way communication device, a device that had been silently observing and recording their lives. It's been recording us our whole lives. The gravity of the situation began to sink in. Every conversation, every thought, every memory had been captured and stored. The tower had been a silent witness to their entire existence.
What? Cam's voice was filled with disbelief. The idea was too surreal, too horrifying to comprehend. How could they have been so oblivious to the tower's true purpose?
Ash scoffed, but his voice lacked conviction. He wanted to dismiss the idea as absurd, but deep down, he knew there was truth to Lena's words. The evidence was undeniable, and the more he thought about it, the more it made sense. He was starting to believe it. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, and the picture they formed was more terrifying than anything he could have imagined. The tower was not just a piece of equipment, it was a sentient entity, an entity that had been watching them all along. The impossible was becoming undeniable. The tower's true nature was revealed, and there was no going back. They had to confront the reality of their situation, no matter how terrifying it was.
But how? Cam's voice was filled with confusion. How had the tower managed to record their lives without them knowing? What kind of technology could achieve such a feat?
Cam asked, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. The mystery of the tower was unraveling, but with each answer came more questions. The fear of the unknown gripped them all. Lena pointed to the microphone, its wires snaking towards the massive antenna on the roof. The setup was intricate, almost otherworldly. It was clear that this was no ordinary piece of equipment.
It's been mimicking us, amplifying our voices, our thoughts, our memories, and broadcasting them back. Lena's voice was steady now, filled with a sense of resolve. They had to find a way to stop the tower, to reclaim their lives from its grasp. We have to destroy it,
Lena said, her voice firm with newfound resolve. She had never felt this kind of determination before, but the stakes had never been this high. The eerie glow of the tower loomed over them, casting long shadows that seemed to whisper secrets of their own. This was more than just some spooky mystery now. It was a matter of survival, of reclaiming their lives from the clutches of this malevolent force. The tower, with its sinister aura, had been a silent observer, a puppet master pulling the strings from the shadows. This thing, this tower, it had been spying on them their entire lives. Every secret, every fear, every moment of vulnerability had been recorded and stored away, used to manipulate and control them. The realization hit them like a ton of bricks, fueling their resolve to end this once and for all. She grabbed a pair of wire cutters, the metal glinting in the dim light. Her hands trembled slightly, but she steadied herself, knowing that this was their only chance. The room was filled with the hum of machinery, a constant reminder of the tower's omnipresence. With a grunt, she severed the main power cable. The sound of the cable snapping was like a gunshot in the silence, a final act of defiance against the tower's control. She could feel the tension in the air, the anticipation of what was to come. A shower of sparks erupted, followed by an eerie silence as the tower fell dark. The oppressive hum of the machinery ceased, leaving a void that was both terrifying and liberating. They stood there for a moment, letting the reality of their actions sink in.
Is it over?
Cam whispered, his voice trembling. The fear in his eyes was palpable, a reflection of the uncertainty that gripped them all. They had taken a huge risk, and now they had to face the consequences, whatever they might be. Lena wasn't sure, but she desperately wanted it to be. She looked around at her friends, their faces etched with worry and hope. They had come so far, and the thought of it not being over was almost too much to bear.
I think so,
She said, but her voice lacked conviction. The words hung in the air, a fragile hope that could be shattered at any moment. They needed to be sure to leave no room for doubt. They piled the tapes and equipment into a corner, dousing them with lighter fluid they found in a rusty toolbox. The smell of the fluid was sharp and acrid, a stark contrast to the musty air of the tower. This was their final act, a way to erase the past and ensure that the tower's influence was truly gone. As the flames took hold, they fled the tower, the echoes of their past burning behind them. The fire roared to life, consuming the tapes and equipment, turning them to ash. They didn't look back. Their only focus was on the future, on the freedom that awaited them beyond the tower's shadow. Back in the safety of Lena's room, the events at Static Hill felt surreal. Ash was already online, researching electromagnetic anomalies and government conspiracies. Lena was trying to make sense of the tower's recordings, the eerie whispers still echoing in her mind. Only Cam seemed unaffected, scrolling through the photos and videos he'd taken at the tower.
Dude, check this out.
He said, his voice giddy with excitement. He held up his phone, a puzzled look on his face.
This video, I don't remember filming this.
The video was dark, filled with the static hiss of the radio tower. The air seemed to vibrate with an eerie energy, as if the very fabric of reality was being distorted by the relentless waves of static. It was a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, filling the room with an oppressive presence that made the hairs on the back of Lena's neck stand on end. 3 figures stood in the flickering light, their faces obscured by shadow. They were motionless, like statues carved from the darkness itself. The light flickered and danced, casting eerie shadows that seemed to move and shift with a life of their own. Lena could feel her heart pounding in her chest as she watched, unable to tear her eyes away from the unsettling scene. A voice whispered from the phone speaker. It wasn't Cam's voice. It was a low, raspy whisper that sent chills down Lena's spine. The words were indistinct, like a forgotten language spoken from the depths of a nightmare. She strained to make out what it was saying, but the more she listened, the more it seemed to slip away, like sand through her fingers. It was the voice from the radio, the same voice that had haunted her dreams for weeks, always just on the edge of her consciousness. It was a voice that seemed to carry with it the weight of countless forgotten sorrows, a voice that spoke of things best left unspoken. The voice from the tower. Lena's blood ran cold. She remembered the stories she had heard about the old radio tower on Static Hill, stories of strange broadcasts and mysterious disappearances. She had always dismissed them as just that, stories. But now, standing in the presence of that voice, she wasn't so sure. The video showed them, standing in the tower room, but they weren't alone. There was something else there, something lurking in the shadows, just out of sight. Lena could feel its presence, a cold, malevolent force that seemed to watch them with unseen eyes. Standing behind them, barely visible in the static, was a tall, shadowy figure. It was a figure that seemed to be made of the darkness itself, its form shifting and flickering like a shadow cast by an unseen flame. Lena's breath caught in her throat as she realized that the figure was watching them, its glowing eyes fixed on their every move. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light, a light that seemed to pierce through the darkness, cutting through the static like a knife. It was a light that held a terrible knowledge, a light that seemed to see into the very depths of Lena's soul. She felt a wave of fear wash over her, a fear that was almost paralyzing in its intensity. Before any of them could speak, Cam's phone glitched, the screen flashing white. The sudden burst of light was blinding, and Lena had to shield her eyes. When she looked back, the screen was filled with static, the image lost in a sea of white noise. It was as if the phone itself was trying to erase the terrible vision they had just witnessed. When the image returned, the video was gone. The screen was blank, reflecting only their own pale, frightened faces. It was as if the video had never existed, as if it had been nothing more than a figment of their collective imagination. But the fear that lingered in the room was all too real. All that remained was the faint hum of electricity and the lingering feeling that they weren't free from Static Hill. The air was thick with tension, the silence broken only by the soft, persistent hum that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Lena could feel the weight of the unseen presence pressing down on her, a constant reminder that they were not alone. Not entirely. Lena knew that the events of that night would haunt her for a long time to come. The static, the shadows, the voice from the radio, they were all part of a mystery that she was only beginning to understand. And as she stood there in the dim light of the room, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much darker and much more dangerous than she could ever have imagined. Lena,